This is the Alden Report.
All right. Well, today's episode is brought to you in part by Grimdrops. Grimdrops has been creating custom logos and murals for over a decade. They know how to bring your brand's engagement and social impressions to the next level in a way that marketing alone cannot do. Their knowledge of eye-catching art and design combined with their expertise in social trends allows them to design strategic and bold statement pieces which visually represent your specific brand. Take a look for yourself and visit www.grimdrops.com. That's www.grimdrops.com, G-R-I-M drops.com, and reach out today for a free quote. It's time for your brand to get the attention that it deserves. Again, visit www.grimdrops.com.
This is the Alden Report.
All right. Well, my name is Mike Alden. We are here in Blue Vase Studios. I'm dressed down a little bit today. I got my Wicked Happy hat on. I don't have my glasses. I don't have my 99-cent glasses. I got to be honest. I was like kind of a little frantic today. I got a bunch of stuff, bunch of things going on, but I'm super excited, like I always say, for my next guest. My next guest is Josh Cary. He's the founder of an organization called PodMAX. He's a classic entrepreneur, but he also helps guys like me and others within this podcasting space. His background is super interesting. Some of the things that he talks about and some of the things that he teaches when he speaks and consults with people is also interesting. So I think, listen, if you're listening to my podcast right now, or you're watching the podcast right now, and maybe you listen to other podcasts or watch other podcasts, and maybe you want to kind of do your own podcast. Well, this is definitely the guy to talk to. We're going to talk to him about a whole bunch of things, but I'll just tell you right now, I'm going to pick his brain about this whole podcasting world because I'm still trying to figure it out 6 years in and 150 episodes deep. I'm still trying to figure it out. So please help me welcome Mr. Josh Cary. Josh, thanks so much for being my guest, man.
Mike, it's my pleasure. You know, I feel like I'm at the Kiss concert and I'm seeing them out of makeup. I wanted to see you in your 99-cent glasses. I was like, oh, I'm going to get the full mic, but
yeah, man, you get to see the bags under the eyes and everything. The glasses, they're in my car. I do have another pair. And so behind me is a television studio actually behind you, actually. And they're in there.
I know. You're pointed forward. Right.
Yeah. But so, yeah, no, I think I'm just going to look at you, and I still got my Wicked Happy hat. So I'm kind of dark, I just turned the light on. So we're good, man. But hey, thanks for being here.
Of course. Is there a clip that I could and should watch to hear the story and or the evolution of the glasses, like the why, the purpose, the meaning behind it?
I mean, I can tell you why if you want to know why before we get into.
Sure.
So the real reason, right? And you'd appreciate this as a professional. So when I'm looking at you, right, like this on Zoom, I'm looking at your eyes, but I'm really looking down. So if I really wanted my sight line to be perfect, I'd actually want to be looking at the camera. So if I have
correct,
if I have glasses on, you can't see that, right? So when I'm looking to the side. So right here to my left, right, I have an iPad with your website up. So a lot of times when you talk, so I try to be a pro, but then the glasses make me look kind of like a joker. So those glasses were 99 cents. And I've had people like bust my balls about it all the time. I've had some pretty big names on, and one guy in particular, well, a couple of guys, kind of famous guys. They're like, "Are you really going to wear those glasses?" And I was like, "Well, yeah. Why?" They're like, "No, I'm just curious." Okay, cool, whatever. They were annoyed by it, which made it even funnier. So that's the real reason, is the sightline thing. And then the other reason, Josh, is I just look fucking cool in them. So, but I feel like I look cool.
Of course you do. And that's what you really do. It's all good, Mike.
Yeah. So, all right, man. So thanks for being here. We got introduced through a mutual friend, and I saw your background. One of the things that kind of intrigued me about you is, I think one of the things that said on your website, how you were hidden from the world for 40 years. Yes, so as I'm looking at you now and listening to your voice and seeing some of your stuff, it's hard to believe that. So tell us a little bit about your background. And I know that I think you're an actor, doing all sorts of things. Tell us about your background, kind of how you got to where you're at today.
Well, thanks for even in the short amount of time saying that. Wait a minute, this guy was hidden. He seems like a charming, charismatic, confident, handsome guy that I can't even figure out what he means by hidden. So yes, you're right. I'm the hidden entrepreneur. And that's because I spent 40 plus years of my life hiding, showing up in every situation, hiding everything that I was really able to do. All of my skill, my talent, my ability remained hidden because I desperately wanted to seek the approval of others. And I didn't want to rock the damn boat, right? I figured that if I dare show up with something quite good in any regard, something that might elicit a, wow, Josh, great job. Look at you go. Way to go, bro. No, I couldn't handle that. And I figured if I did that, it might actually make you feel insecure about yourself, right? Because we're all reflections and mirrors of each other. So if I was doing something great, I might trigger something inside you and you might retaliate against me for showing up confidently and powerfully. In all these years, I didn't feel like I had the strength or the ability to stand up for myself. So I avoided it. Plus, I wanted that approval. This caused a lot of conflict, as you can imagine, in my life, because I knew darn well what I was capable of doing. I knew that I can do sometimes even better than what I was seeing others do. That caused a lot of anger, animosity, jealousy, right? When you see somebody, all that's where it comes from. And it just caused all that within me. And then I had to sort of numb that pain. And that's why we take up bad habits as we do. And the vicious cycle continues. And I was able to.
So let me ask you this: where did it come from, right? Because a lot of I think I probably kind of know the answer, but a lot of it comes from our childhood, our parents, things like that. You know, so really, did it come? Where did it come from for you?
Right, that's exactly right. There wasn't one main traumatic incident that I talk about. It was just a series of slowly but surely. I'm the youngest of 3 sons. My mom makes no bones about the fact that she wanted a daughter, and I was her last hope. She didn't get it, so there you go. My father was at the bar much more often than he was at home. So here I was. My older brothers are 6 and 9 years older than me, so I was left to my own. Didn't feel loved, didn't feel wanted, didn't feel included. So that was what I sold myself. And then that's how I saw the world. And therefore, that's how the world saw me. So I just felt very removed and isolated and unloved and unwanted. And here I am.
So, you know, not to minimize it, but it's a very common story that you hear with a lot of people. But the uncommon part about it is the breaking through moment, right? Where
Sure.
you decide to do something about it and change your life. So many people go throughout their lives and they get to that 40-year mark and they're still stuck, and they decide that they don't make a change. They don't rock the boat. They don't do the things that they feel as though that they should be doing. But you did. You stepped out. You decided that you were going to do great things. I had Dan Coyle on he wrote the book called The Talent Code, and he talks about this thing called the ignition moment within athletes. Like they walk into a stadium as a young kid, like, Fenway Park, and like, man, that's what I want to do or whatever. So for you, at what point, like what was that ignition moment for you? Was there one person? Was there one thing? Was there one event? Or was it a series of events that kind of just changed the trajectory of, what you decided you were going to do for the next 40?
Let me put it into perspective like this for you. In 8th grade, I got bit by the acting bug. I was innocently changing classes. This girl, Renee Stevenson, shouts from across the hall, "Hey, Josh, are you going to audition for the school play?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." Just wanting to fit in, not even knowing what was happening. But now I felt like, oh, gosh, I got to figure out if there's a school play to audition for. So I did, and I got cast as the comic relief, which was the person responsible for making the audience laugh naturally. And I've never really done anything like that before. I was just on stage doing my thing that the script called for, and hundreds of my classmates were laughing. Now, granted, I know they were laughing at me and not with me, but in that moment, I felt, wow, this feels good. They're giving me attention. They're acknowledging me. Are they validating me? Right? Something that I was doing. So this external approval and validation was coming through. And I said, I think this is what I need. This is where I belong. If I could pursue whatever this thing is more, get this kind of external validation, I think that's going to heal all of this void that I'm feeling on the inside. So I set out to pursue an acting career, fudged my way through the rest of high school, C's and D's at best. And then these days, I wound up spending a 15-year career pursuing that in New York. A lot of great credits, but spoiler alert, it did not heal the missing stuff that I needed from the outside in, right? Because what does it come down to? It's got to come from the inside out first in order for it to be effective. So when the curtain would come down, I would just go home alone, miserable again, angry, often crying in the corner, numbing myself, and that cycle continued. So to answer your question, what was that ignition moment? Cut to today. I'm the proud father. You've probably heard this story before. I'm the proud father of 2 adoring children. I have an 8-year-old daughter, a 6-year-old son. They are my absolute everything. I knew growing up all my life that, I'd love to be a father. I'd probably like that role. Lo and behold, I do. But early on in their young lives, when I was not my healthiest, I realized one day, I said, I see what's happening here. I'm the child in this circle, and I'm the one who has work to do. So many of us want to control others and control the situation that we need that to change. We need you to change to satisfy my needs, my wants, and my expectations of the world and the way everything works in order for me to feel happy. Not the way I saw it with my children. I was like, wow, I'm the one with a problem. I can't continue to be this person, go on my merry way, have you guys watch and learn from me, and most likely become this kind of person. So I said, I'm out, done deal. I'm going to take some time and really work because, again, I always knew what I was capable of doing. I knew what was possible. Just never took the moments because I was scared out of my mind to rock a boat, make you feel insecure. But I was like, no way, got it, understood. The light bulb went off. It's time. And now the work began and the work continues to begin. And then I started just putting better habits in place.
So boy, a lot of stuff there. You said that you weren't healthy. Were there addiction challenges in your life? Because, and it sounds like, so thank God you found acting because you did maybe kind of find your purpose, right? Which has really kind of got you to where you're at today.
Absolutely.
As well. So that's great. A lot of people don't find their passion, right? And look, we all know the stories, being an actor, a musician, professional athlete, what have you, like the chances of you making it is just super rare. And so it's a brutal career, a path to go down. I'm glad you did. I'm sure you're glad you did too. But so that's 8th grade. You follow your path, so to speak, but you said that you were numbing yourself. Was there addiction, again, like I talked about, that was a real issue for you? And how'd you overcome it?
Yes. Great questions. Yes. Quite literally sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? Or sex, drugs, and acting role, whatever it is. Yeah. So marijuana was my drug of choice, like every night, trying to numb, and feels great, but come on, right? It doesn't heal. And so, yeah, there was that, a lot of unhealthy up top in the head. And then when I realized that, okay, I have to evaluate what I'm doing here in order to, I get it from my children. Let me now put better habits in place. I just took an honest evaluation of what I'm doing morning, noon, and night that aren't serving me. And it's not easy to do this, but it's darn possible. And that's really what I hope to show. It's like running the 4-minute mile. Go ahead.
No, yeah. So, I mean, so again, it's there's a great book called The Power of Habit, and talking about that, and it kind of almost goes back to that ignition moment type scenario where a lot of people who suffer with addiction, I think we all suffer to a certain level, just to what we're addicted to. There's usually a moment or a thing or a person that says, okay, that's it. Like you said, well, I just decided. Was there like kind of a rock bottom? Because a lot of people, again, are not self-aware. Like I talk about this all the time. My addiction, is food. There's no question. At night, I'll eat like an animal, right? I think I have a bit of an addictive personality as well. And I'm well aware of it. I go to therapy. I've been going to therapy since I was a kid. I talk to people about it, but a lot of people just don't, right? They hide from it. They think that people can't see it. So for you, like, was there someone that said to you, Josh, you gotta get a hold of yourself, or was it you? Did you really just say, all right, man, did you have that ability to look inside and say, I need to make a change?
Well, yes, it was looking into my children's eyes and realizing that I'm better than this. I've always been better than this. I can do better than this. And now is the time I must do better than this. Because if I projected myself 20 years down the road when I would have been an empty nester going down this path as the angry, miserable, frustrated person, I know my kids would have reflected that and become that. I couldn't have them grow up with that kind of a father, and then they would turn into their version of that. And thinking of that 20 years down the road, seeing them in their own struggles that I probably would have been a cause of because of how I was around them, I knew that there wouldn't have been anything I can do at that point. And I couldn't live with that thought. But now in real time, I'm like, okay, it's certainly not too late. It's really never too late. It's early in their lives. Let me make the change. So that was the rock bottom enough. Seeing them in my world, looking up at me and saying, I'm not happy or proud with who I am. It's one thing for yourself to, abuse yourself and do all these things to sabotage and harm yourself. But for me, with my children around, that was the only revelation I needed to say, all right, we're going to start doing a little better slowly but surely. And I don't got to tell you about the 5% rule. And it's that kind of a concept.
Yeah, you're right. It takes work. It's constant work. I think we're always trying to work towards getting better. Well, thanks for sharing that, with me. I think it's important for people to understand. A lot of people are going through stuff, but a lot of people don't like to talk about it. So I'm glad that you were able to talk about it. And I'm sure there's a lot more to the story as well. Folks, we're on with Josh Cary. He is the founder of an organization called PodMAX. I want to talk a little bit. We're going to talk a lot about that as well. He is an entrepreneur. He's a business coach. He's also a keynote speaker. He's lived obviously a very interesting life, and he's, I feel like he's just getting started. We got introduced to Josh through a mutual friend, and you can just tell if you're watching, listening to him, he's upbeat. He loves life, and he also is continuing to get better. So if you'd like some more information about Josh, you can just go to joshcary.com. He is on Instagram as well, Josh Cary Co. And then you can also check out his company, podmax.co. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So again, if you want some more information about him, you can just Google him as well. And he's out there when you Google him, because I did. All right. Well, today's episode is brought to you in part by Grimdrops. Grimdrops has been creating custom logos and murals for over a decade. They know how to bring your brand's engagement and social impressions to the next level in a way that marketing alone cannot do. Their knowledge of eye-catching art and design, combined with their expertise in social trends, allows them to design strategic and bold statement pieces which visually represent your specific brand. Take a look for yourself and visit www.grimdrops.com. That's www.grimdrops.com, Grim drops.com, and reach out today for a free quote. It's time for your brand to get the attention that it deserves. Again, visit www.grimdrops.com. All right, so here we are today, and you have this organization called PodMAX, and I told you earlier before we went live, but to me, it was really interesting. So I've had this podcast, my podcast, for 6 years. I've had some pretty big names. I've been on television. I don't look like this, right? But I've been on television for 12 years interviewing people in what is also called the Alden Report. It's just the television version of that. Tell us about PodMAX, what it is, and why people like me or other people maybe who want to be a podcaster should pay attention.
the reason I got into the industry, or the industry got into me, depending how you look at it, was because I credit the podcast space with literally saving my life. And I know that that could sound like hyperbole, but I'll put it into perspective for you. Prior to coming to this table with my own show in 2018, the Hidden Entrepreneur Show, I was running my own digital marketing agency for 10 years at that point, building websites, Google rankings, and content creation, just getting yourself seen for an industry that the business for me became toxic. And that's because of, my full responsibility. It's what I brought to the table. But just like any other toxic relationship, once you acknowledge it and you know that you have to get out, it's not about waiting until something else is in place. If you're in a toxic relationship, you're not going to say, well, I'll leave this when I have another relationship to go into. And when I acknowledged that my business was the source of toxicity for me, I knew I had to get out without knowing what would be next. So I said, well, I got to go. It's been a great, quote unquote, 10-year.
Let me stop you there about that, because I think a lot of people, including myself, you get to that point in a business. I've built a pretty big business and, done hundreds of millions of revenue, and revenue, right? Hundreds of millions. There's a big difference between revenue and profit, right? There are certain businesses and certain parts of my business that I just don't like, right? And then I think a lot of people are like that as well. And I was talking to a friend of mine. He says, well, are you frustrated with your business, right? Or do you just not like it anymore? Because if you're frustrated, we could probably fix that. If you don't like it anymore, you should probably think about getting out. So when we talk about getting out, like, what exactly did you do? Did you sell it? Did you walk away? Did you give it to somebody? I'd like to know, like, actually what happened. Because I think a lot of people are, especially, post-COVID, a lot of businesses are struggling, including mine. Like, what do you do? What did you do? And was it scary? Because it had to have been.
Of course. And for clarity, for me, it was acknowledging that I was the problem, because myself, I was so miserable, so angry, and therefore that's who I was attracting as clients over and over and over again. And they were just terrible relationships with clients and the industry and my work. And, my self-value, my self-worth, my self-esteem was reflected in everything. That's not attractive, literally, to anyone. So what I did was, I'd like to say I walked away, but truth be told, this was an agency model where I was selling website services month to month to clients. And when I say I walked away, the bigger truth is that I just stopped creating new content, new products, new services for new clients. I just stopped marketing it. I wanted no new business, but I still had the responsibility to the ongoing website clients, even to this day. So I have a tech support team in place that services and manages current clients, but I emotionally pulled away. And I sort of physically pulled away from the industry and any new business, but I'm still serving the current clients because that's my responsibility. And I didn't want to cancel that, right? It's their website, a lot of their livelihoods. So I'm thankful enough to still have revenue and income there for the valuable service we're providing, but hopefully that answers your question. So it's still an active company, but I am not emotionally attached. I'm not marketing it. I'm not creating it. I'm not taking on new customers or clients in any way.
So do you have someone who is essentially managing that business and running it for you?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Just to sustain the current client base.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes a lot of sense. All right, so let's talk about PodMAX. So what is PodMAX? I know you're passionate about it. I'm super passionate about this space as well. Having interviewed hundreds of people throughout the years. I really love it. I love meeting people like you. But, you know, in order to make money in this space, there's a million podcasts out there, but there's a million of everything out there, and everything's competitive. Tell me a little bit about, you know, so like I said earlier in the opening, if I have a podcast, if I'm thinking about starting a podcast, if I'm afraid to, but I want to, like, so if they go to PodMAX.co, what are they going to learn? And how can you help people?
PodMAX is a training and event company for thought leaders and entrepreneurs, where we help you identify, practice and rehearse, and deliver your message. And then once you're fine-tuned with that message, we help you get on the right shows to deliver that message. And this all is surrounded by our core event, which is now virtual, used to be in person, but it's now virtual, happens every 6 weeks on the calendar. And it's an all-day virtual event where entrepreneurs and thought leaders have the chance to be matched up and tell their story as a guest and record on multiple top shows relevant to their industry, all in the course of one day. So it's sort of like speed dating for the podcast industry. Now, during those hours, you record each hour where we match you with another host. And in between those recordings, you'll experience a high-level keynote, a few of them, plenty of networking also built in to the room. And that's the event that is PodMAX. Now, me and my founding partner, we both come from the personal growth and development space personally, where we really latch on to that. So through this very effective and productive day, where entrepreneurs and hosts are all coming together to record and to connect and to network and to learn and to train and get educated through the event, there's a lot of personal growth and development, because we know, as Jim Rohn said, your level of success will rarely exceed your level of personal growth and development. So we like to work on the person first behind the show, instead of what I think a lot of people want to do is, how can I grow my show? How can I grow my show? I need more listeners. I need more downloads. We take the opposite approach, and we're finding good success that way.
So you help people who have podcasts, but you also help get other people on podcasts. Yes.
All of it, both.
All of it. Okay.
So we'll help you on either side of the mic. You have a show, you want a show. We help you create, launch, produce, market, distribute that. And then, of course, for the thought leaders and entrepreneurs, we find everyone from the C-suite level down. Even those people who you might think, they got this mastered. No, a lot of them come through. They've never really been on shows. They don't really know what their message is. They don't know how to really communicate and tell their story. And we work very closely with everyone who comes through, one-on-one, in small groups, through the event, before the event, to help you feel confident, identify your story, practice it on the mic, sound great, look great, and then position you to get on the shows in some form or another through our brand.
So, you know, by the way, it sounds like an awesome service. And as I'm listening to you, I think about, one of the questions that came to mind, which was, you know, who should have a podcast? Because, you know, like all the other kind of emerging things, it's like, you know, all right, you got to have an Instagram account, you got to have a Twitter account, you got to have a TikTok account, you got to have a Snapchat, you got to have all this stuff. So who should be doing podcasts? Let's start there. So should anybody do a podcast? I don't even know how to ask the question, I guess, because I think about people that that I may be friends with, or I'll give you an example. So let's say you are you own a construction company. Should you start a podcast?
Yes.
Why?
The short answer is yes. And this doesn't mean that everyone who should, right? Anybody can. So there's a big distinction there. Generally speaking, your friend in construction, should there be a conversation about whether a podcast is right for that person and their goals and their personality? Absolutely. A conversation should absolutely be had. Will it be right? I would like to say that 8 times out of 10, the answer will probably be yes. You can probably make this work. There could be and would be benefit. And there's a learning curve, right? Not everybody is going to be good or great out of the gate, but people can get there, again, depending on what their goals are. If you just want to horse around with your friends, great, have at it. Have a podcast because you want to just have fun. But that's not the conversation we're having, right? The conversation is there a business or personal reason for someone or anyone to have a show? Most likely, yes. A conversation, I can find that reason. Your friend who's in construction, again, yes, most likely I can find the way and the positioning and the angle that a podcast would make sense within the confines of his world and his business based on his goals and what I know, some things he may not be considering of the goals, because there's a lot of creativity you can do in this. It's not just as simple, or it's not just as cut and dry as your buddy's going to have a podcast, which is going to be an interview show. Who's he interviewing and what's the purpose? There's so many different ways to build a podcast for someone around their business to achieve whatever personal and business goals they want. So the short answer is yes, conversations are perfect to have to identify, does it make sense for you? It's a lot of questions, right? Like, why are we even having this conversation? What do you think a podcast is going to do? Why do you think you want one? Are the reasons correct? And then we help, show you why and how and when it really makes sense for your business based on the conversation we just had.
What's the biggest reason why someone who wants to have a podcast doesn't? Like, what's the biggest barrier?
Yes, great question. And all these are limiting beliefs, but the reason is because they say, I have nothing to say, and really all these are excuses for fear, right? That's it. Because all these are debunked and not true, and it's just your limiting belief. They think, oh, I have nothing to say. I'm not interesting. Who cares what I have to say? Who's going to listen to what I have to say? Why am I even showing up anywhere? I have no time for this. And really what they're saying there is, what's the return? If I'm going to dedicate my time, I can't imagine any return for this. So believe me, if there was a financial guarantee or return that you were aware of in some regard, even over the long run, you would make time. So all these are limiting beliefs, but those are the most common ones we hear over and over.
In a second, I want to talk to you about the money-making side of it and how to make money in podcasts, because there are so many different ways to go about it. I've been at it for 6 years. We talked about this earlier. This has been the first year that we've actually monetized it, and I still don't know all the reasons why, so I can't wait to kind of pick your brain about that as well. Folks, we are on with Josh Cary. Josh is the founder of an organization called PodMAX. You heard him talk a little bit about what they do. Look, if you're thinking about maybe starting a podcast, maybe you have some of these self-limiting beliefs and you want to break through them. Maybe you even have some of the equipment. Maybe you even have the web domain, because I know a lot of you listening right now, some of you listening right now, some of you are my friends. I'm actually talking directly to you, and you know who you are. Then check out what he's doing. I think he could probably help you. Go to podmax.co. If you'd like some more information about Josh, you can also go to joshcary.com, C-A-R-Y, joshcary.com. He's also a professional speaker. He's a coach, and he can work with you as well. So if you want more information, check him out there, or check out his company, podmax.co. Okay, so let's talk about the money-making side of things, right? So, people hear the Joe Rogan story and all these other, and they hear about the guys from Barstool Sports, the girls there that are making crazy money.
Of course.
And so we all kind of think, oh, well, that can be us. A couple things. I guess the first question is if you just started a podcast, let's start with a kind of a hypothetical. If you just started a podcast and you did it because you want to get your message out, tell your story, whatever that is, we crystallize it, we figure out what that is, but you also need to make money, right? How would you advise that person to go about, kind of monetizing their voice, so to speak?
Well, it's not going to be monetized through advertising, meaning a CPM model, cost per thousand listeners or downloads, anytime in the near future, even if you get to the coveted 5,000 download threshold, which is really the minimum any advertiser will allow you or, accept you. And the industry average right now is about $25 per thousand. So you do the math. If you're doing 5,000, which is a minimum entry, you're getting $1.25 an episode. That's not where your money is going to be. And even to get to 5,000. So the first thing is to stop thinking about this aspect of things in terms of a Joe Rogan, who, by the way, came with an audience, right? He came with a celebrity status. So good. But this also shows that there's possibility, which there is. So how you can best use your show, which again comes from all kinds of conversations we have, is in a marketing aspect. Use the show to continue to market you, your brand, your business, your products, your services. That's the best use of this. When you're on a show, you are positioned in a certain way. You are borrowing credibility and standing alongside some of the guests you may have. You get access to these guests. You can learn from them. There are so many ways you use your podcast as a marketing channel to something you already have and parlay it that way. That's the first thing out of the gate you should understand and be focused on. It's not directly monetized. You don't make money from your podcast. You make money because of your podcast in so many ways.
Yeah, that's a really, really great point. For me, the podcast has just been an amazing connection tool, right? And I've connected with so many people, and developed like real relationships and real friendships with people, and indirectly, those things have turned into business, but not with the intention of doing business, right? It's like, hey, I think you're interesting. I think you're cool. Like, as soon as we're done, I'm going to get your cell phone. We're going to be texting. I'm going to send you weird pictures. No, I won't do that until later. But so for me, it's always been about just meeting interesting people and connecting with interesting people doing cool stuff. Okay. So that makes sense. And that's a really great way to think about it, because I think a lot of people get caught up on the fact that, oh man, well, I'm going to spend all this time. And I'm here in an actual studio. It wasn't designed specifically for podcasts. It was designed for voiceover work. But we don't do that often. So we're like, hey, let's use this space. Right. And that's really kind of how my podcast started. So to think about it the way you said, how your podcast can be just a tool to market yourself, your brand, and to connect with people is a beautiful way to think about it. But let's talk about some of the things that were. So let's say you meet that coveted mark, like I have I don't even know what the thousands and thousands that we've had, but I know it's greater than that. So you've exceeded it. Let's say you have 10,000 downloads, right? Where does someone go? How do they make money? I know, because you hear about like Patreon, however you pronounce it, and some of these other services where you can put your stuff on there. Like where does somebody go? Like if it were you, what would you do?
Well, there are a handful of popular advertising networks that fill your show with ads. And then, of course, they take a cut and there's a percentage split. So those are, if that's the road you want to take and explore at some point, that's absolutely fine. See if it makes sense. So you just go to a podcast ad network to help you fill your inventory.
So is there anyone in particular that you would recommend that you've used that you feel as though is reputable, that's good?
Midroll is one of the more popular ones on the circuit.
Yeah. I've heard of them as well. So, okay. So there's companies like Midroll. What's your thoughts on, you kind of touched upon it earlier. So like, let's say you have a product, like, so you mentioned, so you have a digital marketing agency, but you're not getting new clients, right? So, but if you or you're not actively seeking out new clients. So if you were, would it make sense for you to take your agency and to pop in ads for that? Is that what a lot of people do?
Yes. And I'm glad you asked, because it's twofold. You can pop in ads. left and right in any way that makes sense. But also what you can do either going into the show, which is done in the, initial weeks that we would work together to really establish, okay, who is the show for? What's the purpose? Who are you within the show? Who are you talking to, on the show, and who's listening? Who are you talking to on that front? Then what you do is you sort of reverse engineer. Who do you want as clients? Who do you want to sell to? And you establish your position that way, meaning I'm starting to work with this company that has a financial course and products for children, which personally, for the love of my children, I think is just fantastic and phenomenal. So what we're working out right now is, okay, if that's your end goal, right? You want to bring as many people into this course and program that you have. So it's not just like, okay, let's get you a show. You're going to interview people and then you'll read ads per se, or drop them in announcing this. But what if, and this is the reverse engineer part, let's establish not only who the show is for, who the listeners are, but who are you going to be interviewing? Who should you be talking to? Not just financial experts, etc. But if your end audience is a parent who's going to be purchasing this program on behalf of their young children, so why don't we get an interview show where you interview parents? So now you are actually one-on-one, directly connected to your end user, and you're connecting and establishing a relationship there. You're getting great direct feedback and pain points and anything else intel you want in real time, but you're also providing legitimate value. So what if your guests are parents of young children talking about their struggles, their concerns, their wants, their desires, their wins, their aspect? How, wow, you've actually raised an 8-year-old child who's already saved $50,000. Wow, we're going to hear from you today. Like, great. And then you're going to talk to a parent who says, I could barely get my child to eat their vegetables. How am I going to get them to save? And it's just all this stuff. That's a great show. That's the kind of work you need to do for the end result to make it a massive win.
Makes a lot of sense. I know we don't have a ton more time, but I wanted to also ask you about the technology side of things, the equipment side of things. One of my first advertisements on television, people have heard me say this before, we shot it in a basement in Gloucester, Massachusetts. I'm pale, he's orange. You can see the black backdrop. You see my shoes at one point. We do what they call jump cuts, where it's right. The whole thing's a disaster from a cinematography standpoint. However, the content's great. And it's generated over $100 million, right? And so I think a lot of people get caught up in the fact that you need this microphone, you need a Mac, you need a mixing board, blah blah blah. Okay, what do you tell people who look? Just real quick, I would tell you, I've recorded multiple podcasts in my car, on my laptop, using just a microphone that was essentially just a headset. And with one time I did it, and the guy was in Belgium, using my Wi-Fi from my phone. And by the way, no one can tell, right? And other than the fact that I said it because it was just kind of cool. So, what do you tell people about who get caught, who aren't tech people? They don't know what to do. Is it expensive? Do I need this type of microphone? What all this other, I tell people a lot of different things, but I'd love to hear, someone like you who runs a company that teaches people stuff. Like, what do you tell people as far as the tech side of things?
You bring up two interesting points here. One is that it's been proven that less polished ads, like video, like you said, like videos recorded obviously on a handheld phone selfie are convert much better than your big glossy polished ads. But that's not to say that we don't teach you show. Now, granted, you did what you did in the car and it worked, but that's not where you sat and remained, right? You did it, you do it, you get through it, and now you're here. we certainly teach somebody that if you're going to guess,
I just did, by the way, I just did one of those ones I was talking about like 2 weeks ago. And the only reason why is because my daughter was playing tennis and I wasn't going to miss it.
Yes.
So that's why I did it.
Right. It's absolutely perfect. So it's never out of the question, but that's not your norm, right?
Right.
What we teach, whether you're a guest or a host, is you can get all in for $100 in change, right? You can get a great microphone that sounds good for under $100. Get yourself a pair of headphones, fine, some lighting, right? You're all in. That's what you should do. And then you should learn how to do it. So none of this is expensive at all. What it comes down to is knowing how to get good at your craft. And that's what I adore about this industry. Every single thing is teachable, is learnable, is a skill. Thankfully, my 15 years as an actor, filmmaker are transferable. That's why I'm here, right? I can use a lot of the stuff I learned and now I can teach, and it is teachable and it's learnable. It's a skill and this is a craft. It's something you can get better at if you want. That's great news. So we teach, get as good equipment as you can for fine, decent, acceptable money. It's a small investment and price to pay, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think a lot of people need to get out of their heads with that stuff and get the content out. It's
an excuse otherwise.
Yeah, that makes sense for them. So, Josh, I know we don't have a lot of time left, and again, your background is super diverse as an entrepreneur and some of the things you've done. But you got me fired up. You got me motivated and excited. But before I let you go, are there any thoughts that you wanted to get out and leave with our viewers and listeners about, maybe this world of podcasting, and if they're thinking about it, what should they do?
One of the themes that I'm seeing emerging here is any sort of resistance for bettering yourself, going down a path of growth, starting a show, considering it, and getting that show on the road is all about excuses. You can make all the excuses you want. I see through them. So if you want to have a conversation and put your best self forward and know that, yes, they're just like everything else in life, welcome it. There's going to be a level of uncomfortability because there's unfamiliar territory. That's what I wake up every day looking for, because as I'm sure you know, you don't get to your level of success, Mike, not embracing and acknowledging and being face to face with uncomfortability and unfamiliar environments and then powering right through it. So that's what you need, right? So if you're ready, willing, and able to explore that, to have those conversations, let's talk and see what's right for you. Because yes, you can continue to say anything you want against it, but it's an excuse that I'm not going to fight for. If that's your truth, your world that you want to live in, great. I'll help you support that. But if you want to get a little uncomfortable and see what's on that other side, I'm right here.
I love it. I love it, man. Thanks so much, for coming on today, spending some time. I've learned a lot from you. I'm glad we got connected. Folks, if you'd like some more information about Josh Cary, you can just go to joshcary.com. It's joshcary.com. If you want to learn a little bit more about what he's doing with PodMAX, super interesting to me. I kind of wish I had someone like him when I first started, because I had no idea what I was doing and probably spent way too much money and stuff. Like, I just hit my face on the microphone. See, I don't even know what I'm doing. So again, if you want some more information about Josh, you can go to podmax.co, or you can check him out at joshcary.com. Again, he's a coach, he's a speaker, he's an entrepreneur, he's an actor, he's doing a lot of different things, but he's taken all of those skills and really starting to help other entrepreneurs kind of get their voice out as well, and really package it and teach you how to package it. If you've been listening and watching, you've heard him say, he really helps you crystallize your message and put it out there. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have him on today, because I think so many people do have a voice and so many people do want to get their information out, but they don't know where to go. Josh is definitely the guy. His company is the guy. So again, visit joshcary.com or also podmax.co. My name is Mike Alden. That's Josh Cary, and we'll see you soon. All right. Well, today's episode is brought to you in part by Grimjobs. Grimjobs has been creating custom logos and murals for over a decade. They know how to bring your brand's engagement and social impressions to the next level in a way that marketing alone cannot do. Their knowledge of eye-catching art and design combined with their expertise in social trends allows them to design strategic and bold statement pieces which visually represent your specific brand. Take a look for yourself and visit www.grimdrops.com. That's www.grimdrops.com, Grim drops.com, and reach out today for a free quote. It's time for your brand to get the attention that it deserves. Again, visit www.grimdrops.com.